This video is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc. with free weekly content and free shipping on orders over $150. You can save 5% site-wide by using the promo code MTGMudsta. If you're looking for a direct way to help the channel, please consider joining my Patreon and becoming a member of the generic Goblin Gang.
Hey gang, and welcome back. I'm a little sick and a little late to the party, but thanks to Marie, we're able to play the Commander Masters Precon decks. In today's game, I am lucky enough to be playing Sliver Gravemother, keeping Gemhide Sliver, Diffusion Sliver, Blade Sliver, Vanquisher's Banner, Felwar Stone, Nomad Outpost, and a Jungle Shrine. Max has picked Anikthea, keeping Sungrass Prairie, Forest, Grasp of Fate, Battle at the Hell Vault, Omen of the Hunt, the Binding of the Titans, and a Mess Enchantress. Marie is going colorless with Zhulodok, keeping Thought Vessel, Rise of the Eldrazi, Desecrate Reality, Mystic Forge, Forge of Heroes, Ruins of Oran Reef, and Urza's Mine. Last but not least, Nick has brought some friends with the Commodore Guff Super Friends deck, keeping the Chain Veil, Oath of Gideon, Thrumming Bird, 2 Plains, Command Tower, and a Frostboil Snarl. I win the die roll and start us off. I play a tap Jungle Shrine. Max just plays a Forest. Marie plays out a Ruins of Oran Reef. Nick draws and plays Frostboil Snarl tapped. I've got a Mountain for turn and pay 2 for a Gemhide Sliver. Max plays a Sungrass Prairie and then casts the Binding of the Titans, milling everyone for 3. After that, he passes. Marie draws and plays an Urza's Mine. She then taps 2 to cast Thought Vessel and passes. Nick draws and plays a Fury Calm Snarl, revealing a plane so it comes in untapped. He then plays Thrumming Bird and passes. I've got an Irrigated Farmland which comes in tapped, and then cast a Felwar Stone. I follow that up with a Striking Sliver and go to combat, swinging the Gemhide Sliver at Max to deal 2. With nothing else, I pass. Max draws and ticks up the Binding of the Titans in his main phase, exiling 2 of my slivers from my graveyard and regains the 2 life I just dealt. Without a 3rd land though, he unfortunately has to pass. Marie draws and plays a Wastes. She then plays Hedron Archive, one of my favorites, and passes. Nick's got a Plains for turn and casts Oath of Gideon, making 2 core ally tokens as it comes in. He then goes to combat. He swings the Thrumming Bird at Marie and proliferates the Binding of the Titans to blank its last ability. With nothing else, he passes. I draw and play a tapped Nomad Outpost. I then play a Vanquisher's Banner, naming slivers obviously, and pass to Max. Max draws a land finally with a Forest, and then casts Omen of the Hunt to go and get a Plains. He passes after that. Marie draws and plays a Forge of the Heroes as her land drop. She then casts her commander, Zhulodok, and then activates the Forge once it's in to put a +1/+1 counter onto it. She then passes to Nick. Nick draws and plays a Plains. He then plays out Commodore Guff, which enters with an extra loyalty counter from the Oath of Gideon, and then upticks him to make a wizard token. Going to combat, Nick hits Max for 1 with a Thrumming Bird, proliferating both on Guff and on Zhulodok in an act of goodwill. He then passes to me. I draw and play a Smoldering Marsh. I then play a Venom Sliver and draw a card from the banner. I follow that up with Diffusion Sliver, drawing again. Going to combat, I swing my 2 slivers that can attack at Nick, who doesn't block, and I then pass to Max. Max draws and casts a Grasp of Fate in his main phase, exiling Zhulodok, Guff, and my Vanquisher's Banner. He then plays an Orzhov Basilica, bouncing a land back to hand as it comes in tapped, and passes. Marie draws and plays a Wastes. She then plays Investigator's Journal, which comes in with 4 counters onto it, and then casts Mystic Forge. At this point she's able to cast a free Metalwork Colossus, and then once that's out, activates the journal to remove a counter and draw a card. Nick draws and plays a Prairie Stream. He then recasts Commodore Guff, upticking the Walker to make another wizard token, and moves to combat. He hits me with a Thrumming Bird, proliferating on Guff again, and then passing to me. I draw and play a Plains. I cast Sliver Gravemother, and still have enough mana to cast Distant Melody, picking Sliver to draw 5 cards. I pass to Max after that. Max draws and replays the forest he bounced. He plays a Mesa Enchantress, and then plays Ghoulish Impetus on the Metalwork Colossus. This lets him draw a card from the Enchantress, and he passes after that. Marie draws and plays Skittering Cicada off the top thanks to her Mystic Forge. She then plays a Mirage Mirror and moves to combat. She's forced to swing the Metalwork Colossus, which goes at Nick, and he chumps it with a Core Ally token. With nothing else, Marie passes. Nick draws and plays Command Tower. He then downticks Commodore Guff to deal 1 to each of us and draw 1, and then plays out Gatewatch Beacon. He follows that up with Vronos, and then downticks Vronos on the Felwar Stone, Mesa Enchantress, and Metalwork Colossus. Going to combat, Nick then swings a Thrumming Bird at Max, and gets to proliferate onto his Planeswalkers after it connects. He then moves to his end step, and Commodore Guff's ability triggers, putting an extra loyalty counter onto Vronos. I draw, and play an unclaimed territory naming Sliver. I then play a Gale Rider Sliver, and then a Cleaving Sliver, and I move to combat. I swing the Sliver Gravemother at Vronos, and the other Slivers at Marie and Max. Vronos gets taken out, and Marie and Max take some hits, and after that, I pass to Max. Max has a Plains for turn, and plays out Heliod, God of the Sun. Once that's resolved, he casts a Nyxborn Behemoth for 2 mana, and passes to Marie. Marie's turn has her replay in Zhulodok, and this gives the Cicada +6/+6 until the end of turn, and she then replays the Metalwork Colossus basically for free, and this pumps the Cicada by an additional +11/+11. She also gets to cascade twice from the Colossus, hitting an Oblivion Sower, which as she casts it, exiles the top 4 cards of Max's library, but hits no lands, and pumps the Cicada even more. Her second Cascade hits an Unstable Obelisk, and the Cicada gets a total of +9/+9 from the Cascades. Marie then plays a Guildless Commons, bouncing a Waste back to her hand. Moving to combat, she swings the Cicada at Nick to deal 28, and he takes all of it. After that, Marie passes. Nick draws and plays Promise of Loyalty. He keeps the Thrumming Bird, I keep the Gravemother, Max keeps the Nyxborn Behemoth, and Marie keeps her commander, while the rest get sacrificed. Nick then follows up by casting an Arcane Signet and goes to combat. He swings the Thrumming Bird at Marie, dealing damage and getting to proliferate onto Guff, and adds another loyalty counter to the Gatewatch Beacon. He then upticks Guff in his second main phase, and on his end step, Max uses Path to Exile on my Gravemother. I draw and play a Forest. I then play a Taunting Sliver, goading the Nyxborn Behemoth, and then Hibernation Sliver, which allows me to goad Zhulodok, and I pass to Max. Max draws, plays a Forest, and moves straight to combat. He's forced to swing the Behemoth at Marie for 10, which she takes. He then plays Archon of Sun's Grace, and then a Battle of Bredegard, which makes a Pegasus token from the Archon and a human from its own ability. Marie draws and replays the Wastes. She then taps out to play Desecrate Reality, targeting Guff, the Hibernation Sliver, and Nyxborn Behemoth. I respond by paying 2 life to bounce my Sliver back to my hand, and Marie then resolves her 2 Cascades. She hits a Thran Dynamo, and then a Palladium Mirror, and then exiles our stuff with Desecrate Reality, and returns the Skittering Cicada to play. Marie then follows up by copying the Thran Dynamo with her Mirage Mirror for some extra mana, and this lets her play Bane of Balaged. She cascades into a Steel Hellkite, and then Ugin the Ineffable. Once the cascades are done, she downticks Ugin to take out the Pegasus. Moving to combat, she's forced to swing Zhulodok at Max, who chumps with the human token, and Marie then passes to Nick. Nick draws and plays Norn's Annex, going shields up, and passes to me. I draw and play Command Tower. I then recast the Hibernation Sliver, goading the Bane of Balagad, and then play the Spiteful Sliver, goading the Skittering Cicada. I bounce the Hibernation Sliver, losing 2 life, and then recast it again to goad the Steel Hellkite. With nothing else, I pass to Max. Max draws and makes an Elf Warrior token from the Battle at Bredegard. He then plays Battle at the Hellevault, which as it enters, targets the Bane of Balagad, Oath of Gideon, and my Hibernation Sliver. In response, I pay 2 life to bounce it back to hand, and then the rest get exiled, and he passes to Marie. Marie draws and plays Rise of the Eldrazi, destroying the Battle at the Hellevault to get back her Bane of Balagad, drawing 4, and getting an extra turn. But first she has to resolve her 2 Cascades though, and hits a Duplicant and an Artisan of Kozilek, the latter of which she has an on-cast trigger from, and she reanimates the Ancient Stone Idol in her graveyard. Duplicant then comes in, exiling Heliod as well before it loses the loyalty from Battle at Hellevault. With what feels like a zillion spells having been cast from only 1, Marie then activates the Mystic Forge to exile her top card, and then plays an Abstruse Archaic, and then a Transmogrifying Wand. Moving to combat, she swings the Cicada and Steel Hellkite at Mac to ensure she'll do lethal, which she pumps for an extra 6. After combat, she upticks Ugin to exile her top cards as Manifest, and then goes to her extra turn. Marie draws on her extra turn, and annexes Max's vacant playmat so that she can spread out her board. She then makes the Mars Mirror into a copy of the Skittering Cicada, and plays it All Is Dust, which is basically a one-sided planar cleansing. At this point, Nick and I both know we're dead, and scoop it up to her. Game review time. This game was 59 minutes and 15 seconds, and I kind of enjoyed that. I find oftentimes the Precon games go pretty long, and it's not unusual for some of these recordings to be over 2 hours before being edited down. I'd say the 2 clear winners in this game were definitely the Sliver deck and the Eldrazi deck, which is surprising considering how little Eldrazi are actually in the Eldrazi deck. Marie was just able to cast some massive spells, not to mention getting 2 other spells almost every time she cast something if her commander was out. That's just so much value. The Sliver deck also performed very well, although like any kind of go wide deck, a board wipe here and then a second board wipe typically takes you out of the game, and I found that I was losing and missing critical slivers by that point. Max unfortunately didn't get to showcase Anikthea too much. He seemed to be missing black mana for most of the game, but he did get to cast a couple cool new enchantments, but didn't really get to show off much of the deck. In the same vein, Nick really only casts Commodore Guff in his Planeswalker deck, which is just not what you want when a commander who specifically has abilities that are built around having multiple out. Down-ticking Guff when there's only one walker out never feels good, and it just seemed like Nick had so much more support cards than Planeswalker cards in the Precon.
This video wouldn't be possible without the help from my sponsors, Cool Stuff Inc., Multizone, Original Magic Art, and Alter Sleeves. But it definitely wouldn't be possible without the help from you, the viewers, and my patrons. So I just want to say thank you for watching, and to remember, friends are just opponents you haven't eliminated yet.